Picture this. A small, frozen town in the Arctic wilderness wakes up to a nightmare. 400 wolves circling, hunting, and closing in. This isn't a legend or a fairy tale. It's a horrifying true story. What happened in Ryrkaypiy in 2012 will make you question what it truly means to be prey. A lockdown like no other, and a chilling battle for survival you won't believe. Stay with us, because this is a tale you have to hear to believe. Imagine waking up one winter morning to find your town surrounded by a menacing force, one that isn't human. This is the true and chilling tale of Ryrkaypiy, a small and isolated village in the Chukotka region of Russia. In 2012, this town of just a few hundred residents became the site of a harrowing lockdown. Not because of war, disease, or natural disaster, but because Ryrkaypiy was under siege by a pack of 400 wolves. It began subtly. Early in January, the villagers noticed a disturbing shift in the usual stillness of the tundra. The howling of wolves grew louder, closer, and more frequent. At first, they thought it was the regular movement of wildlife through the vast, frozen expanse surrounding their town. Wolves were not uncommon in this region, but they typically avoided humans. Soon, however, the villagers realized this was no ordinary gathering. The wolves weren't passing through, they were coming for them. The first signs of trouble were easy to dismiss. Tracks began appearing in the snow near the town's outskirts. Circular patterns and large paw prints dotted the untouched white landscape. The villagers chalked it up to a single wolf or two scavenging for food. But the tracks grew more numerous each day, crisscrossing one another, always coming closer to the homes and barns on the edge of town. By the time the first sighting occurred, it was too late. One night, Nikolai, a reindeer herder, ventured out to check on his livestock. He had heard their nervous cries from his home and thought a fox or stray dog might have spooked them. But what he saw froze him in his tracks. Beyond the fence of his paddock stood a mass of wolves, their bodies blending with the darkness, their glowing eyes reflecting the pale light of the moon. They were massive, with thick, ragged fur and teeth bared in silent threat. Nikolai shouted and clanged his lantern against the fence, but they didn't move. Instead, one of them, a huge black wolf, stepped forward, its growl low and menacing, as if it were issuing a warning. Terrified, Nikolai ran back to his home, leaving the reindeer to their fate. The next morning, all that remained of his herd were bloodied patches of snow and scattered bones. The wolves grew bolder by the day. Within a week, the pack had surrounded the entire village. Their howls were deafening, echoing through the frigid air like a chorus of doom. At first, the villagers tried to continue their lives as best they could, keeping children indoors and avoiding venturing out after dark. But soon, the wolves were prowling the streets in broad daylight. They clawed at doors, circled homes, and lunged at anyone who dared step outside. Some wolves even tried to break through windows, their snarling jaws snapping inches from terrified families huddled inside. Livestock, the town's lifeblood, was slaughtered in massive numbers. Barns were breached and left in ruins. Hundreds of reindeer, dogs, and goats were killed, their remains strewn across the snow. The air became thick with the metallic scent of blood. For a town that relied on these animals for food, transport, and survival, the losses were catastrophic. Fear quickly turned into despair. Ryrkaypiy's isolation only amplified the terror. The village was located deep in the Arctic wilderness, cut off from the rest of the world for much of the year. The nearest city was over 200 miles away, and the roads were buried under heavy snowfall. No help could come quickly, and no one could leave. The townspeople were trapped. By the second week, the town had effectively shut down. Schools, shops, and workplaces were abandoned. Parents kept their children close, barricading their homes with whatever they could find: furniture, planks of wood, and even mattresses. At night, the villagers huddled together in the dim light of kerosene lamps. listening to the wolves' ceaseless howling. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling the windows felt like a prelude to an attack. Desperate, the village elders called for help, summoning a team of professional hunters from neighboring regions. Armed with rifles and accompanied by sled dogs, these men arrived on snowmobiles, determined to confront the pack. But what they found when they entered the tundra was something out of a nightmare. The pack wasn't just large, it was unnaturally organized. The wolves moved as a single unit, encircling the hunters and cutting off their paths. The hunters described the animals as fearless, charging at their vehicles and lunging at their throats. One hunter, a seasoned tracker, later recounted seeing the leader of the pack, a massive black wolf with piercing yellow eyes, staring at him from a distance. The wolf didn't attack. It simply stared as if it were studying him, daring him to come closer. Despite their efforts, the hunters made little progress. For every wolf they killed, more seemed to appear, as if summoned by some unseen force. The hunters managed to push the pack back temporarily, but they couldn't eliminate the threat. The wolves always returned, hungrier and more aggressive. As the siege dragged on, the town descended into chaos. Supplies ran dangerously low, and the constant fear began to take a toll on the villagers' sanity. Some claimed to hear scratching and growling even when no wolves were nearby. Others started seeing shadows moving just beyond the edge of their vision, whispering voices carried on the wind. One elderly woman, already frail and unwell, was found dead in her home. Her family swore she had been perfectly healthy the day before. The doctor attributed her death to a heart attack, but whispers spread that it was the wolves. They had frightened her to death. Children, too, were deeply affected. They refused to sleep, terrified that the wolves would break in during the night. Parents told stories of waking to find their children sitting by the windows, staring into the darkness as if hypnotized by the distant howls. One boy, only 6 years old, claimed to see a wolf's face pressed against his bedroom window on the second floor. Finally, after weeks of terror, the wolves vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. By February, the pack had retreated into the tundra, leaving behind a devastated town. Over 300 reindeer had been killed, along with countless other livestock. But the psychological scars were far worse. The villagers were left haunted by the memories of those glowing eyes, the relentless howls, and the feeling of being prey in their own homes. Even now, the people of Ryrkaypiy speak of the siege with hushed voices. They say that on cold winter nights, when the wind howls through the tundra, you can still hear the wolves calling to one another, a chilling reminder of the time when humans weren't the top predators. Some believe the pack was driven by desperation, their natural prey wiped out by the harsh winter. Others whisper of something darker, something supernatural, that drew the wolves to the town. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the people of Ryrkaypiy will never forget the winter they were hunted.